And that is how to create your 24/7 marketing flywheel. Before I really understood the marketing flywheel, my life was much more difficult as a marketing leader. And the companies that I worked with, the marketing programs we were building, it was so much more frustrating to really understand like what was working or what was not working. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Marketing for Startups podcast. Today, we're continuing to talk about hiring our marketing team, but we're going to talk about the biggest mistakes I see founders making when they're building their marketing teams and how to avoid them. So this episode is going to focus on the 3 essential skill sets that founders need in order to build and lead an effective team. And I uncovered these skill sets through trial and error in my own life and business. Working in my personal journey, I've always worked directly with founders and funders. And in some cases, I've worked with founders that are quite inexperienced, right? And so if I'm learning from inexperienced founders, like in the beginning of my career, we're sort of all feeling it out ourselves. So these mistakes that I'm talking about today are ones that I've personally made. And I've seen this vast difference in my own life and in the teams that I lead and the way that I build my marketing teams in my marketing departments, working as a fractional chief marketing officer, a fractional marketing director. These 3 skills have been essential in my own success, right? Leading marketing departments. And so because I see a lot of teams that cannot afford or it doesn't necessarily make financial sense for them to have, a marketing director or a chief marketing officer in their business, I believe that any founder, by gaining and acquiring these 3 skills, focusing on sharpening these 3 skills, are going to be able to lead their marketing team to success, and actually create a marketing program with positive ROI. But these 3 skills are essential. So before we get into the specifics of the 3 skills, I want to remind you that we have some really cool resources available to you for free on our website, ugliventures.com. That's ugly with an I, ugliventures.com/resources. And you can pick up a couple really cool guides that are going to give you awesome information on things like how to build a brand that gets people talking, how to end marketing overwhelm, how to build your sales-focused marketing strategy. You can grab any or all of them. They're totally for free. And I would love to see you using these guides to help you grow your business and get everything to the next level. So without further ado, let's talk about these 3 skills. Okay, so the first skill is connected to actually one of the free resources that I have available on our website. So if you go ahead and download the End Marketing Overwhelm, okay, so you can grab that on ugliventures.com/resources. You can click on the guide that says End Marketing Overwhelm. It's going to teach you exactly what I'm suggesting is the skill you need to acquire to lead your team to success. And that is how to create your 24/7 marketing flywheel. Before I really understood the marketing flywheel, my life was much more difficult as a marketing leader. And the companies that I worked with, the marketing programs we were building, it was so much more frustrating to really understand like what was working or what was not working. And it just felt like we were throwing spaghetti at the wall. And for me, working directly with founders, right, being the number 2 usually on the founding team in most cases, I was caught in the crosshairs of sort of executing on every creative idea that the founder would come up with. And maybe you as a founder have been guilty of just that, right? That you've been chasing kind of new ideas or kind of looking around and seeing what everyone else is doing and then saying, oh, we're not doing that, we should do that. Not like feel like your promotional campaigns are always rushed and that you're always behind, and also not really understanding what's working and not working. So the way that you bring everything together in marketing and even with your sales and your customer service is by looking at building a vibrant marketing flywheel. I call it your 24/7 marketing flywheel because when you are considering every stage of your marketing flywheel, which has 6 unique stages, when you have activities flowing for each one of those stages, then you have this flywheel that's always churning. Even if you're not like constantly feeding it, you have systems in place, so it's continually churning. So there's a lot to get into with the 24/7 marketing flywheel. So I encourage you to grab that guide. Again, uglyventures.com/resources, and it will walk you through step by step each of those 6 stages. But I'll give you now like a high level overview because essentially it's a version of your client journey. And your 24/7 flywheel is going to consider things like your awareness stage. How are new audiences learning about your business and what you do, right? How are you reaching new people consistently each and every day, each and every week, each and every month, quarter, year, right? Next is how are you engaging with them? How are you enticing them to get into your world, to give you their email address so you can build that relationship and continue to connect with them and tell them about your products and services, right? Next is nurture, right? How are we building on that relationship and getting those prospects ready to purchase with us? That's the nurture phase. Then we have the invite phase where we're actually asking them to purchase with us. We're really actually putting the, asking for the sale. After that, we're delighting them, right? With our product or service, we're wowing them, we're exceeding their expectations. And finally, advocate, where we have a system in place for gathering client testimonials, referrals, and reviews and feedback. So these are the 6 stages. I go into a lot of detail in the free guide, but the best and most important thing that you can, skill that you can acquire as a founder and in terms of marketing is really understanding this flywheel, And for me, when I started focusing on just this one thing, if you've ever read or heard of the book, The One Thing, right? What is the one thing you can do that would make, that would kind of knock off many different tasks or sort of take things off your plate? The 24/7 marketing flywheel is one of them, because if you focus really on this one thing of sharpening the saw and honing in on the skill of understanding how to build your 24/7 marketing flywheel, then you're going to not get caught in all of the little pieces, right? Like, what's our TikTok strategy? What's our, what are we going to do for the blog this month? No, we just are focusing on the bigger picture. We become very good at really measuring the success in each one of those 6 stages. And if we are focused on measuring the success, measuring the outcomes, then we can bring in skilled people to help on those individual tactics that we employ at each one of those stages, right? So your job as the leader, the skill that you need is to have that zoomed out version of your marketing flywheel. And then you have to get into skill number 2, which we'll talk about right now, which is prioritizing projects and setting clear goals for the team. Okay. Because, and for me, the way that I personally manage my own business and the businesses that I work in and how I advise the people in our sales and marketing growth accelerator is that everything stems from your marketing flywheel, right? Your marketing flywheel is the most important. It's the basic framework of your marketing program. And it's kind of the thing by which everything waterfalls down from. So skill number 2 is getting really good at helping your team prioritize and setting very clear goals, communicating very clearly the expectations you have for how your team is performing, for what they should be executing and what they should be focusing on. And the way that you set those priorities is by looking at your 24/7 marketing flywheel and asking yourself, do I have something running for each one of these 6 stages? What's working or not working in each one of these 6 stages? If I have something running, is it systemized, right? Is it, how much effort does it take to execute? Is there a way to be more efficient? Do I have the right people on the team executing these different pieces, right? You want to have this zoomed out look. And when you ask yourself questions like these, you can prioritize things like, who do I need to hire? What projects do I need to execute first, right? So when you get that overview look and you know what projects that you need to execute, right? So for example, we went through those 6 stages very quickly, but let's look at lead generation. Let's say that you're facing a problem where you just simply are not getting in front of enough people, right? So your sales are down because you need more leads. So that's the first stage of the 24/7 marketing flywheel. So that's probably where you want to focus first if that's a problem that you have, right? So now we're going to say, okay, step 1, awareness. How are we going to solve this problem, right? That you're going to prioritize over other stages of the flywheel because that is what is most immediate that's going to affect revenue, right? So you can start problem solving for that one problem, which is, okay, can we start running ads on different platforms? Asking ourselves, is our ad manager effective enough? Could we be running partnerships? What are all of the ways in which we can get in front of new audiences? What have we tried? What can we invest in to sort of get our awareness phase, our lead generation pumping more strongly? This is how you determine the priorities for your marketing department, right? And you need to help them understand where the priorities are, okay? And this brings me into a huge mistake that I see tons of founders making. And again, things that I've also messed up on in the beginning of my career as well, which is expecting that the folks that I hire to execute different parts of this flywheel actually can build and manage the whole flywheel themselves, right? So the skill I'm asking you to acquire, that I'm suggesting is the most important, is for you to understand how to build that 24/7 marketing flywheel. But what happens is we hire our social media manager, we hire our email marketer or a copywriter, and people come into these roles with a lot of really good intentions, and oftentimes these freelancers or contractors, they want to do well, they say yes to everything, but often they don't have the skill set or the experience to actually build out that flywheel and manage it, right? And so if you can't afford or doesn't make sense financially for your business to get a marketing director or a chief marketing officer into the team, then you need to take the reins on understanding that flywheel, and don't expect for your manager level team or your interns or your individual contributors to be able to build and execute on that flywheel, right? And we often think like even agencies, right, that we hire are going to do it all for us, but it's just not the case, right? We really need to own that flywheel. And then skill number 2, we need to prioritize against that flywheel. We look at what's working, what's not working, what we have, what we don't have, and then make a priorities for the marketing department that are aligned with your bigger business goals, right? And then once we've set those priorities, we're going to turn them into quarterly goals for our team. And then the quarterly goals need to be extremely clear, right? We need to create SMART goals. So they need to be, what is the acronym there? It needs to be measurable, time bound. The acronym is escaping me, but they need to be very clear, very clear, with goals, with expectations, with dates very clear on what does success look like, what are the outcomes that you are reaching for when you are setting that goal. The more clear you can be with your team, the better they're going to do for you. So skill 2 is all about how to prioritize what you need to execute in the marketing department, and how do you set those goals clearly and communicate them clearly to your team. And then the last skill, the third one, is leading the team, okay, and providing the support and resources and managing the outcomes. So as a leader, what we want to do from skill 2, when we're prioritizing and setting those clear goals, we want to turn that into some data that we can track. So the third skill to acquire is really to be that leader and help keep your team focused on the numbers and the performance and basically making sure that they reach the outcomes that they're responsible for. Okay. And so again, sometimes we put these key performance indicators, these targets for our team, and we kind of maybe say it in the beginning of the quarter when we're setting goals and we don't actually keep up with it, or we feel a little bit bad being strong with our team because maybe they're not full-time employees. And I would say this is a huge mistake because, having, being held accountable to results is going to make your team perform better. They're going to pay more attention. They're going to be excited. They're going to think of solutions. They're going to be more creative. Don't slip into the trap of kind of hiring these people and then, giving them their marching orders and not really checking in on a week over week basis on how they're performing. Because what could happen is, and often does, you get to the end of the quarter of the year and you feel like your team's just on autopilot, right? That things are okay, they probably could be better, right? It's not until we're pushing those targets, those numbers, and really managing those outcomes that we get more out of our team. We get more buy-in from them, we get more action from them, right? So skill number 3 is about, being the leader, keeping your team focused on what's important, focused on those priorities, focused on those goals, and then managing that outcome. And the way that you manage the outcome instead of managing the individual is by providing support, providing resources for them. So that means checking in with them on a weekly basis and seeing, are you on course or off course to reach your goals? Are you hitting those numbers that you need to hit? And then asking why or why not and giving them the support and resources they need to do what they need to do to succeed, right? We don't need to fix the problem for them, right? What we need to do is provide the guidance and the resources to be able to get to the answer that they need. And that could look like a lot of different things, right? If your team needs to upskill, maybe that means helping them get a coach or get a course or bring a consultant in, right? If your team, that may look like buying specific tools that your team might need to be more efficient, right? In executing the job that they need to execute. So in skill 3 is really in that leadership role, you're having this conversation with your team. You're involved in the job that they're doing, but not by micromanaging them, by being supportive to them. And this sort of brings it all home, which is understanding that as a founder, even me as a marketing director, I'm not the best at executing every single piece of the marketing department, right? I'm not a top-notch social media manager. I'm not the best copywriter that exists, right? Because my skills are very broad. I know a lot about managing outcomes of each of these individual contributors in the marketing department, right? I know enough to be dangerous across every single thing that is related to marketing. And that is what I want for you as a founder. Because if you don't have someone like me on your team, you need to be that. You need to be that so you don't waste time or money expecting that a team that are just simply not skilled enough to take on that more strategic role. Oftentimes they want to, they just often don't have the skills or experience to be that. So it's your job, okay? So instead of feeling though overwhelmed by it, I suggest only focusing on these 3 skills, right? Understanding that flywheel, understanding how to prioritize and set those goals, and understanding how to be a good leader for your team. With those 3 things, which honestly is not very time consuming because it's not you jumping in and doing things yourself. It's you setting the vision and setting the expectations and being the leader. And if you focus on these 3 skills across all of the departments that you have in your business, then you step into the shoes of CEO and you become a person that can manage all of it, right? You can manage all of it and you're not going to burn out because you're focused on highest level tasks, highest value tasks that you as the leader are contributing to the business. It's not about you getting your hands dirty, doing everything yourself. It's not, right? Oftentimes we do that because we think it's going to save us money. But in the end, we're going to save a lot more money and time getting the right team members in and developing ourselves as a leader rather than trying to be an expert on all the pieces of marketing. So don't make that mistake of trying to do it all yourself or just kind of like having one person try to do everything in your marketing department, right? You have to have realistic expectations. And if you go back to skill number one and really understand that flywheel and understand the components of it, then you're going to have a deeper understanding of the team members you need to get the best performance out of each stage of that flywheel. So I hope that this was clear. I hope this was helpful for you. I always love to hear from you. So please, if you have any questions that you want me to answer on the podcast, just DM me on LinkedIn. I'm Victoria Hajjar, Hajjar. I love to hear from you guys that are listeners. And until next week, keep going. You're doing awesome. And remember, you don't have to go fast. You just have to keep going. See you back here next week.